Stand up, stand up, stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up. It's a great day. It's a great day. Greetings to you from Johannesburg, South Africa. If you're joining us tonight on this special one, my name is Joshua Awesome. And I'm very, very excited about this conversation. For the benefit who do not know, I am privileged to be a member of the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychologists. So like we possibly did in the past day, we will also be doing tonight, taking some very interesting insights around the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychologists, ACCA Awards. So tonight is one of those very special nights. Special because, and if you heard me when I started, I initially was in a special song. Special because I am hosting in a conversation my dear friend and colleague, who is also the most respected and celebrated African coach globally. And she is going to be joining us tonight as we take a moment to just, talk about the ACCA Awards. So while we wait for Nankhonde to join us, I'd like to welcome everyone who is joining us from around Africa. And if you're joining us from around the world also, please let us know where you're chiming in from. Headstone Realty, thank you for joining us. Sapiso, I see you there. Omar Charles, I see you also. Zia Africa, I see you. So while we wait for Coach Nankhonde to join us, so I'd like to maybe first and foremost start by saying that my name is Joshua Awesome. I am a member and a board member of the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychologists. I'm humbled to have had the privilege yesterday to have hosted the chairperson of the African Board for Coaching Psychologists. And the African Board for Coaching also. I'm not sure, I'm not sure, I'm not sure where we are with regards to Nankhonde joining us. But I think it's just important for us to, get a bit familiarized while we wait for Nankhonde. So I'm sending, Nankhonde, if you're there, if you see my invite, just accept the invite, and it will bring you live onto the conversation. I've sent it to you, and so while we wait for Nankhonde to join us, I'd like to just take a moment to also just give some context to this conversation and this call. So one very reason behind this conversation is to help those who do not know that the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychology is hosting its ACCA Awards. And for those who do not know, ACCA is African Coaching and Consulting Awards. Now, yesterday I got the opportunity to host the board chair, and we had a very interesting conversation. And the conversation basically took us from him introducing himself as the founder and board chair for the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychologists, to him getting to also tell us and help us, just connect with his work and what he does professionally to the criteria that we are using to pretty much guide us, and in that guidance, really, what then happens is that we were able to understand, the people who are behind, the ACA Awards. And so today, maybe one of the things that I will do to start, and my hope is that we'll be able to get, the whole connection challenge, in getting Nankhonde on. I think the first thing I'd like to do is just talk you through a little bit about the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychologists. Now, from a standard perspective, we truly believe that if you need to engage a doctor, all right, you will definitely make sure that you are getting the right kind of, support from a health perspective. We also believe that that same approach needs to be applied when it comes to, you finding the right coach, finding the right consultant, finding the right coaching psychologist. And here on the African continent, we are very, very humble and excited to be that standard go-to body. And my ask is that if you are an African and you think about coaching, you think about consulting, you think about coaching psychology, who are the people who have impacted your life, impacted your organization, impacted your community, impacted your city, impacted your country? Maybe those are the type of people that you should consider nominating. So, for example, if you have experienced support in these trying times that we find ourselves in by coaching psychologists, maybe such a person should be nominated by you. Okay, excuse me. And in nominating such a person, please bear in mind that as much as you sometimes might not think that they want to be nominated, the truth is, it is extremely okay for you to nominate someone who has made an impact and an input in your life. And so, having said that, I think I'll just take a moment to just run through the various nomination categories. All right. The website to go to is ABCCCP.com slash ACCA dash awards. So I am really hoping, and I'm really hoping that, anyone who is here, anyone who is joining us or wanting to join us, with regards to these awards, that is the go-to website. And for the benefit of those who Oh, finally.
Good evening.
Hi, Nankhonde. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. Apologies.
Yeah, no, we understand. Challenges come up, and it is part of life. And in the midst of it, while we were waiting for you, I think the first thing I was trying to do was to just take a moment to just highlight various categories, and I was going to just jump to that. Maybe we'll get to that later now that you are in. Um, so it gives me great pleasure to welcome Nankhonde. So just as we began yesterday, we interviewed the board chair for the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Psychologists. And Nankhonde is currently the most celebrated coach in the world. Um, and so maybe the right thing to do really is to just start from the start. For the benefit of those who do not know you, you want to take a moment to just please go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we will jump into the various questions afterwards. Take it away, Nakode.
Thank you. And apologies again. I was actually listening to you on my laptop, and then Mongezi sent me a message to say you need to switch to your phone. But I was listening to the conversation and realized you're waiting for me, and yes, I was on. It's a pleasure to join you this evening. I am Nankhonde, and my name, Nankhonde, is actually mother of bananas, which traditionally means mother of many.
Wow.
And I'm based in Lusaka, Zambia. I'm from Northern Province, and I'm an executive coach here in Lusaka, working in the capital city, but also my practice has extended across 7 provinces, 7 out of our 10 provinces, and 5 other African countries. I'm a very proud African coach.
Amazing, amazing. Well, you try to just sidestep and leave all the other big information. But again, that is the authenticity that you bring to the table. So, mother of many. Wow. No doubt you truly are a mother of many because, I mean, on the African continent right now, we are rooting for you. We're excited about you and your big win recently as the most celebrated top coach in the world. And this is one thing that we're very humbled and excited about. What a better way to celebrate International Women's Day and Women's Month. So it's special. It's special not just for you, it's special for us at the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychologists. I think the next thing that I'd like to just highlight is that Nankhonde is also one of the ACA judges. And ACA is the African Coaching and Consulting Awards, from which we have a couple of nomination categories: organization, coaching, institution, government, coach of the year, consultant of the year, community builder, and Afrocentric coach. And in every sense of the way, the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychologists is proudly African and has a very great spread. So when you think about the ACA Awards, if somebody who has never heard about it before asks you, how would you language and phrase it to bring clarity for them with regards to these awards?
I would phrase the ACA Awards by saying that it is a recognition and celebration of thought leadership on the continent in a unique way, because it looks into the work of coaches and consultants in terms of the macro level African agenda. And from wherever you are on the continent, you cannot but help subscribe to the fact that by virtue of the nature of the work we do, we are part of the strategic plan. And I see it very much as a contribution into the transformation that will catalyze the growth in so many of our markets, in so many different sectors. And so I see at a macro level these awards for what they contribute to national development, which by default then has an impact on if I can call it, the state of the continent. And then if we bring it down closer, that is such a high level thought and worldview. And if I bring it closer to myself, for example, as a practitioner, what it means is that what drives us in our day-to-day work is that macro transformation happens at a micro level. It is with every single individual I work with, and the way I take myself to my clients, how I actually support the community in shifting the frequency or the energy around the leadership that is then made available because of that session, because of that transformation. I have an executive who's doing something different. I have a chief. I have a village head Manduna. I've been working with the village head Mandunas, chiefs, who are actually looking at how do we, as Africans, learn from the wisdom of our cultures and traditions, and how do we use those platforms that we have grown up with and have now packaged and structured in ways that we use in Zoom or across meeting tables in the form of coaching today. I see all of that when I think of the awards. And so for me, they're very powerful because they come from an African perspective, but they recognize that we have a standard. And even as we celebrate each other, we also want to ensure that we uplift and acknowledge that good is not good enough. We want to excel and we want to be the best. And for me, the awards showcase the best.
Amazing. As you unpacked this, I was thinking of a phrase that somebody used recently, that fine is okay, but fantastic is better.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the fusion of you talking about celebrating and uplifting. And I really think that's a very interesting way of unpacking this for the benefit of those who are just joining us. My name is Joshua Awesome. I'm a coaching psychologist and a member of the board of the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychologists. And I'm humbled to be here in conversation with Nankhonde, whose name means mother of many. Wow. And in several ways, she's a mother to many. She just introduced herself, chiming in from Zambia, but more importantly, making impact. And I see the chairman of our board, Dr. Mongezi, just chimed in there. Dr. Mongezi, welcome. And so here's the interesting next question that I would like to ask you. Okay, so now you've talked to us about your perspective of this. And so when you think of the criteria, because there are people who possibly are joining us, and Adegoke, I see you all the way from Western Nigeria. And it's quite interesting. Share with us, for the benefit of those who are joining from across the continent and across the globe, the ACCA Awards criteria. Okay, so what are the criteria that people should, put at the back of their mind while we are thinking of, okay, who should I nominate? Why should this person be nominated? And if I'm nominating somebody, do they stand a chance? So what are the criteria that helps to guide in eventually saying, okay, these are the people that will eventually possibly get, to move up the ranks in the nomination list towards being awarded?
So if I think in particular, I was actually looking at my nominations for the Coach of the Year. Um, I think it's important when celebrating our fraternity that the awards are based on are evidence-based. And so for me, the criteria that looks at the coaching contribution to the industry, for example. So whatever industry the coach or the consultant is working in, they have brought in a significant contribution through their work. Then there's the idea of the social impact, social cohesion that they bring to the work, to the transformation. And beyond that, then there's the longer term vision. When I was at one of the first symposiums and coaching awards, we articulated a vision for Africa, and it's Vision 2116. And we thought, from that point, if we really think about 100 years from now, the Africa we want. And when I met Mongezi, one of the things that's really resonated as like, this man, the articulation of preparing leadership for the 22nd century. And that's another criteria, contribution to that longer term agenda. And it really made me think that, wow, I thought I was thinking sort of big and wide.
Yes.
This took me to a whole new level. So that criteria of, the future Africa that we are looking to curate through leadership, the efforts, and it's a dual conversation, the efforts are immediate, short-term, but the impact is long-term. And it may not even be at a point where some of us will see, but that criteria about the future is very significant. And then there's the rigor in benchmarking practices. And for me, when you're looking for Coach of the Year, you have to appreciate the training and how you apply the training. Because it's one thing to acquire the concepts and the knowledge. It's another thing to be an experiential practitioner who is now cooking those methods and articulating them and expressing them, maintaining international standards, but then driving an authentic purpose. So for me, that benchmarking practices is about standards, but it's also about the coach or the consultant's identity infused into their work. And then integrated coaching, as a systems coach, for me, there's everything is connected. So for me, the different criteria, and I'm just focusing on the criteria as I was coming up with my nomination list for the Coach of the Year, really encourages me to know that, the ABCCCP has not just thought about recognizing coaching for the sake of coaching, but it's recognizing coaching as a contribution at a global level through an African lens.
Amazing. I kind of like I like the way you moved from one of it to the other, and there's a very interesting quote that comes to mind. In our interconnected world, we must learn to feel enlarged, not threatened by difference. And that is what, we as coaches, coaching psychologists, consultants who run our various practices, our various businesses, we're not threatened, uncomfortable by our colleagues who are fellow judges, who are also going to be part of this. But what is more important is, the upliftment of the industry, the upliftment of our continent. And I really think that's a very, very key one there, and something that I'm hoping that, those who get the opportunity to not just be nominated, but also to maybe take away these awards and get to win it, will pretty much appreciate what was at the back of the minds of the ABCCCP, and of course, our great team when we set this up. For the benefit of those who are just joining us, my name is Joshua Awesome. I'm a coaching psychologist. I'm joined here with coaching colleague and executive coach, Nankhonde, who is chiming in all the way from Zambia. And I kind of like, the new learning that I got today about her name and how she's the mother of many. And a very special one, to her. She is the current most celebrated coach in the world. And we're humbled as the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychologists to be chatting with her. And I'm also very honored to be sitting on the judges panel with her for the ACCA Awards. ACCA representing African Coaching and Consulting Awards. And this is the second of its kind, designed to celebrate and uplift coaches, consultants, and coaching psychologists, but more importantly, to help us, really get the essence and treasure who we are as Africans. And I believe that's one very important, lesson that we can think off the top of our heads that we would like you to have at the back of our minds. So Nankhonde, which one of the awards, when you think of it, which one really, really is close to your heart? And I'd like you to just touch on the one that's close to your heart and then chronicle through the various layers and levels of the awards.
So it's interesting because whilst I have a personal relationship with transformation, I also have a professional bias. And so I think what really speaks to me, because I have a management background, so I have more of a tendency to think about coaching from an organizational perspective.
Right.
So whether it's institutional or organization, and the contribution from that lens. At the same time, I also recognize that because of my sort of worldview, I do have more of a interest in and a connection with the purpose of social transformation. And so, and I say this because maybe I'll just add a bit to my introduction. Okay. I've been a coach for 10 years.
Wow.
And in that 10 years, I have personally and professionally developed. And as I've done that, I've gone from becoming an expert in executive coaching, but I've also added on change management.
Right.
And I have a management background. The reason I did that was because I found the executives who would be, or even the talent, if I can put it that way, from succession planning perspective, who would be given to me to take care of, to support their growth, would often be sent back to what I would call the scene of the crime. They would go back to the organization after the coaching. And so that's when the bigger picture, the wider organizational transformation agenda became very interesting for me to say, I can create this transformation at this level, but how can I tap into the system? And that's where I think and I'm getting to my point about the social cohesion and the social contribution that transformation through coaching and consulting is making, irrespective of the industry. And so my connection to change at a wider scale actually comes from the fact that 10 years before becoming a coach, I spent a decade as an international civil servant for the United Nations. So I served at multiple duty stations, at headquarters, New York and Geneva, and then at regional level and at country level on the continent. And what I saw touched me, because I struggled to understand why some of the challenges we were facing were not because of the resources that were available. And I went from looking at transforming what I believe is and supporting infrastructure development, to actually now seeing that infrastructure, there's something missing. And that's how I went to transforming the infrastructure in the mind. And I'll never forget, I was in Ghana and we were bringing a grant to a line ministry. And I had to meet with the minister to negotiate the terms. And, this is not a conversation about development aid, but the minister said to me, Nankhonde, you're an African and you're coming to me with this contract and you're telling me that I should sign it. You know, and I know I need the money. You know, and I know I can't meet those terms and I will default in 6 months and you will be back to explain to me how I defaulted and what the consequences are. So he chased me from his office. He said, go think about what you have presented to me. He could only do that because at some level we had connected on the bigger picture about the contribution we were genuinely trying to bring. And that really got me thinking that how do I then support sustainability in a way that is not about the next check, that is not about the next workshop or training or bridge or road or hospital. It's the mind. And so for me, transformation from that level then became an agenda and my switch from physical to mental infrastructure. And that's why for me, when I think about their awards, I take it from a systemic perspective. I have a professional bias towards organizational development, but that doesn't say that there isn't transformation at another level. And so I have the contribution to industries and sectors, but I also hold a contribution to social change.
Wow, profound. The journey that you have just unpacked is one that everyone who is joining us or who will watch this needs to take a learning from. That where we are is not where we were.
Yes.
And where we are is not necessarily where we will be. In other words, there's constant change taking place.
Yes.
And are we going to be watching the change, or we are going to be part of the change?
Yes.
For the benefit of those who are just joining us, my name is Joshua Awesome, and I'm chatting with Nankhonde, whose name means mother of many. I see some of my colleagues also joining in here. Jim Mugeri, I greet you. And so this conversation really is trying to spotlight the ACCA Awards, and ACCA here touching on the Africa Coaching and Consulting Awards. This is one that we are very proud of. And as the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychologists, we're looking for individuals, corporates, organizations of state, as well as academic institutions that have made excellent contribution to the successful growth of organizations and our people across the African continent through coaching, consulting, and coaching psychology. So when we talk about organizations, I know that there are a lot of individuals who possibly are wondering, okay, when we're talking organizations, and yesterday on the call, I was chatting with the board chair for the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychologists, Dr. Mongezi. And one of the things that we talked about was that many organizations are doing great work in advancing coaching, consulting, and coaching psychology, and their work is not being recognized. And this is one of the reasons why we are also asking people to consider thinking of those type of organizations. So when you think of those type of organizations, what comes to your mind, Nankhonde?
It's interesting because even having won the Global Award last year, at the end of the day, I see my work at a local level because that's where it's tangible. And so I believe we belong to an army of silent soldiers. Some have become generals, but it's not without the progression over time and the contribution or the purpose. It's no different. I don't see myself any different from my fellow coaches. I think what the Global Award did for me was to help me amplify not just my voice, because we stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yes,
It helped me represent a group of people in a very credible and excellent way. And for me, that representation is the silent army. It is the coaches you will probably never hear about. It's the coaches who you do get to hear about in their markets, in their communities, in the organization, through the organizations they support and the feedback they get. But I think to remain in line with, I believe in God. And for me, I believe that we all have the grace. And within that grace, there are gifts. And those gifts are the expression through what we do. And so for me, the silent army is silent because of different types of audiences who may not be seeing them. But there is an audience that respects and sees all the efforts and the work from a spiritual perspective. Because I believe that energy is what goes out to make the difference and transform, but also helps us to understand that whether we're celebrated internationally, whether we're celebrated locally, I go home to my house, to my pillow. My pillow is not celebrated. It doesn't have an award. It's just me and my thoughts. And so all the coaches out there I think of, when you go to sleep, the sense of fulfillment and satisfaction that today I did something. Today I changed somebody's life. I helped them see something differently. I helped them see a different perspective, make a different choice, or I helped them validate and confirm what they needed to do, or I gave them information that they reflected on, because there's not always a result in coaching and you're not always present for it. But the point is, I showed up. And so I sleep at night with the silent army as an equal individual with peace to say, today I showed up with my gifts and I gave. Wow. And that's what I think the power of coaches comes from. It is that for yourself, the peace that you get from what you do.
Profound. I kind of agree, and I like the way you phrased it. I mean, for me, every day before I step my foot on the ground, I wake up with this consciousness that today is a great day. I'm going to do something great today. In other words, something great is going to happen through me today. And then I pause and I also remind myself, something great is also going to happen to me today. And at the end of the day, thinking about what went well is very humbling for us, because this work we really do as coaches, consultants, and coaching psychologists is touching lives beyond our imagination, into spaces and places that we sometimes don't think about. And it's so beautiful for us who are privileged to be part of, this ACA Awards, because we are literally shaping, inspiring, crafting history. And I really think it's a beautiful thing. Talking about beauty, when you think about these awards, what will success look like? I mean, at the end of it, when you think about the awards, what would you say? I really feel we've done something great. This has been, how would you feel? What would success look like for you?
I think success for the awards is at different levels. The first level is the execution. What we demand of ourselves as judges, what we demand of ourselves as ABCCCP in terms of quality of an event. And then I think, because if we're going to showcase excellence, we also have to strive for excellence. I think and that's more like at a process operational level. Success with the intention of the design of this platform and these awards would be that the celebration gives a stage and a platform for recognition to individuals who merit, who deserve, who meet the criteria, and are nominated by their own peers. Because we're just looking at people who have been nominated. We don't pick beyond or before that. And so it's a real recognition, and I believe success would be allowing those names, those people who will be nominated and then win the awards in the different categories, to have a stage, to be on a stage, to allow them to grow their message intentionally. You see, one of the things I see from international award platforms is that they don't only look at the work that has been achieved, but they recognize that the individual's contribution must continue. And so from this, there has to be sustainability for the individual winner, and there must be sustainability for the platform. By going on to continue that recognition in excellence. And I really speak to my fellow coaches, and I'm challenged by it myself, that these awards bring forth a caliber and a crop of excellence in the different categories, and gives you a space and a platform to share your message, but also curate your future. And so success for me would be to see a year from the awards that the individuals who have won have gone on to multiply their impact and do it in a way that continues what we're trying to do, which is put forward and the more of the thought leadership from the continent.
Right. Amazing. I see someone was trying to call Coach Nankhonde there. They should just let you, whoever is trying to call you should just let you finish with this one first.
And put us forward from a thought leadership perspective, so that we continue to now, through that excellence that we're celebrating, documentation, whether the winners have their publications, that we now showcase those, whether they are doing talks and speaking events, whether they're actually now formulating their methods or their approaches into processes, coaching models, or consulting tools. For me, it has to go beyond that award. And for me, that's what the Global Award did. Yes, that was one day and one celebration. And I love the opportunity it presented and the stage I now sit on. But it's now challenged me to say, okay, so I've got to use this. I've got to now take this further and put more of the representation of the same African excellence through this platform through different products, so that those coming behind, those who are even next to me, and even those who are ahead, we now capture the library of thought leadership beyond the award. And we have that whole system of recognizing, but also producing, and not just becoming consumers of Western thought leadership, but producers and exporting the same. So for me, success is in a year's time is that.
Wow. Well, I kind of like the way you layered, it from your lenses, what, success would look like for you when you think of the awards. And I think it's not just supposed to focus on just the award as an event, but to also see it as a platform, like you highlighted, that gives a push, projects, uplifts the work that the persons and maybe organizations here, because we also have institution, which is university that trains in coaching, or institution, university that trains in consulting, coaching anchored organization, government entity of the year, coach of the year, consultant of the year, community builder of the year, Afrocentric coach and leader of the year. So I really think that one of the things we as ACA Awards have on our hands is a very big responsibility, you know, to also support all the various persons and maybe organizations that will be getting this award. And for the benefit of those who are just joining us, I'm chatting with the global coach, #1 coach in the world right now, Nankhonde, and she's one of us. Mother of many, that's the meaning of her name, and she's chiming in from Zambia. She's an executive coach. My name is Joshua Awesome. I'm a coaching psychologist and a member of the board of the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychologists. If you're just joining us and you're wondering what this conversation is all about, it is centered and spotlighting the ACA Awards. What is ACA? ACA is African Coaching and Consulting Awards. If you're thinking of nominating somebody, where do they need to go, Nankhonde?
So join the conversation on LinkedIn. Join the conversation on the ABCCCP.com website where you can nominate. But do follow Dr. Joshua on LinkedIn, follow myself. The links are there on our pages, and also Mongezi, the chair. The conversation is already started on LinkedIn. But for other platforms, I think the website also shares the breakdown. And remember that the deadline is the end of this month. So we want your nominations in as soon as possible. And what I really appreciate is don't just nominate and share so others can also nominate.
I like that.
Anybody you know, so spread it. And the fact that it's extending both coaching and consulting is a recognition of the way things work here on the continent. There's a lot of impact happening from a consulting space because of the contemporary African issues that we're dealing with. And so the transformation is coming through the coaching. Yes, it is the sort of transformation of people, but it's also of different institutions and organizations that have been impacted through consulting as well. So go to LinkedIn, follow the social media pages of Dr. Joshua, and follow and check out the ABCCCP.com website, where you'll get information not just about the awards, but also about the board itself and what it's trying to do on the African continent, and become a member. So I think if you just put Google ABCCCP.com, you will get links to the different platforms, and most upfront on it is the button or menu to nominate.
Okay, so I have just pinned on my conversation on this chat right now details of where you need to go to if you want to nominate a person for the awards. It's abccccp.com/ACA-awards. Thank you, Dr. Mongezi. I see you there, the chair of the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychologists. Thanks, Tandiwe, for joining. Thanks, Gwen Miss, for joining. And just to begin to approach the very last of the very last questions, the criteria highlights, something that says Africa 2016. I heard you talking about that. For the benefit of those who don't understand what that is all about, do you want to take a moment to just, share with us and help us understand, what is Africa 2016? Over to you now.
What is interesting for me is the fact that when we talk about the African agenda, we are contributing to a wider vision. And so if you think about at the level of the continent, there are several initiatives that have brought us together. And this always makes me think of, I've just finished reading speeches by Kwame Nkrumah, because he sort of thought it's a great short compilation of his speeches by, I think he was in the communications person or a journalist at the time, and he got permission to publish them. But the reason it takes me there is because the 2116 is about the Africa we are curating, and that the sort of leadership that is going to be is for which the seeds are being planted and will be harvested in terms of the leadership that will develop our countries and economies and societies, and not just develop them for the purposes of achieving, sustainable development goals. It's really about driving an agenda that exceeds the AU 63 agenda and some of the bigger visions that have been articulated at national strategic levels. So then we set ourselves a benchmark to say, if you think about China's strategic plan, I think it's like 100 years.
Yes.
And it's mind-boggling, because 100 years, never mind what I'll be doing by June, or December, from our thought perspective. But to think ahead, to say, in this longer term timeline, 2116, where do we fit now? And how do we use design thinking to ensure that all our efforts and everything we do today creates that desired future state? Which means that you have to have a deep appreciation that transformation is a process, and it is the baton is passed on. But you must have the end goal in mind, or milestone or target point in mind. And I was looking for this proverb that my father used to say, because I think it describes this very well.
Okay.
And what it talks about is it basically says that there's a tree in I don't know what the English word is for the tree, but it's in Sokolowe. So the tree produces berries or a fruit. And it's a proverb in my language, Bemba, and it says that the Nsokolowe tree, to eat the berries, they have to be dry. So when you are going through the bush, very often you will cut the branches and the branches will fall. But the person who cuts the branches to give access to the fruit doesn't actually enjoy the fruit. It's the later on, after a period when the berries have dried, that you will be passing in the bush and you will find the fruit. Wow. And so for me, the 2116 agenda speaks to this proverb that my father always used to talk about, that you, in the longer term picture, understand the season and the purpose that you fit into the plan. And so cut the tree, let the branch fall. And this is not a climate friendly proverb, but anyway, cut the branch, let the branch fall, and let the berries dry, so that the person who's supposed to come and collect in the future will benefit from that fruit and that provision along their journey to take them. And they will go and do the same for somebody else. Wow. So for me, 2116 agenda is about, I don't know who will eat the fruit, but we know that there will be fruit. So we provide and make provision today in our deliberate and intentional efforts.
Wow, profound. I mean, the way you unpack this, if I were to sum it up in one word, it will be Ubuntu.
Yes.
Yes, and that is very, very profound. And I see Dr. Mungezi has just typed in the chat here for those who are watching. I wonder, do you have a coach? Do you have a consultant? Do you have a coaching psychologist who supports you? And I think that's a very interesting question to ask for us to think about as we begin to approach the end of this conversation. For those who are joining us, my name is Joshua Awesome. I am a board member of the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychologists. And I'm chatting here to the current global #1 coach in the world. Interestingly, she is African. And chiming in from Zambia. Her name is Nankhonde, and interesting, her name means mother of many. So as we begin to wrap this conversation, Nankhonde, I'm wondering what would be, that one thought that you want anybody who is thinking of nominating a person, what would you like them to have at the back of their mind? We know the criteria has highlighted that, we will be using, successful growth of people through coaching integrated into talent development, successful people focused consulting processes, benchmarked cutting edge consulting and coaching processes that push the edge of current practice, and the whole community contribution to solving contemporary African issue in line with the Africa 2016 and AU 2063 that you've just highlighted, and contributing to industry through sharing best practices and research. I'm wondering, what would be that one thing that you would like anybody who is watching or will watch this to have at the back of their mind when they're thinking of nominating anybody?
Wow, what a question. I would, in looking at who to nominate, after considering all the criteria and thinking about who best reflects that in your network or somebody I think the key for me is what we do and who we showcase is touching the life and lives of the next CEO, the next head of state, or the current. So it's present and future impact. And I think in terms of even the scope and areas coaches are working in, you never know, as you mentioned earlier, the unintended consequences of that session. And you don't know where it's going to go. So I think by nominating beyond selecting the criteria, you are joining that frequency of energy that is coming together to transform this continent at a leadership level. And so when you press send, you are sending waves, powerful waves of opportunity for one person who, through their own means in terms of their work, actually touches many people and has an impact in spaces and places that even they probably are not aware of. And so the power of that send, I also think, is equivalent to the power of the vote. When we are called to vote for an election, there is so much behind that nomination and that confirmation, because behind it, it is the state of our nations, our continent, but even closer, of our communities. And if the coach who you've nominated is showcased, maybe somebody else in their community, in another country, look at me from Zambia, with my peers from all across Africa. When I met Mongezi, when I saw what he was doing, when I've met Dr. Joshua, I am also uplifted. And as I am uplifted, I wanted to do more. So remember that when you nominate somebody, you're actually nominating into a transformation that goes beyond what your initial intention was. Right. You yourself, by virtue of doing that, are contributing to the transformation and impacting nations.
And on that note, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us. And for everyone who's chimed in, I see some people just joined in from Zim here. There's Joanne from Zim, Mateo, one of my colleagues and research colleagues and psychologists from Spain, Tade Cash from Nigeria, and the chair of the African Board for Coaching, Consulting and Coaching Psychologists. My name is Joshua Awesome, And in conclusion, this conversation has really focused on the ACA Awards. And if you're thinking of nominating a coach, an Afrocentric coach, a community builder, consultant of the year, leader of the year, government institution of the year, university that trains in consulting, institution or university that trains in coaching, or a coaching anchored organization or an organization in consulting, by all means, head to abccp.com/ACA-awards. It's been a pleasure hosting this conversation with Nankhonde, the mother of many. I kind of like repeating that. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for your time. And to everyone who has chimed in, particularly our board chair, who has graced us with his presence also. You can rewatch this if you haven't been able to join, if you were not able to join us from the start. But more importantly, we encourage you to nominate somebody. And as Nankhonde said, when you nominate somebody, please share it so that many others can get to hear about it. We thank you for your time, and hopefully soon we will be seeing you at the awards. Please bear in mind, nomination closes at the end of this month. It's me, Joshua Awesome, here alongside Nankhonde, saying our goodbyes to everyone. Please look after yourself. Asante sana.
Asante. Thank you. Bye-bye.